Trump suggests he'll set new tariff rates without making deals. Latest big tariff flip-flop since Liberation Day. President Donald Trump suggested Friday his administration could reimpose new tariff rates on imports in the coming weeks without completing negotiations with foreign countries, after previously pledging to negotiate with every country who asks. The latest backtracking the White House has done on its sweeping tariffs, as the Trump administration has frequently flip-flopped in the weeks since Liberation Day. February 7, Trump made his first public comments about imposing sweeping tariffs on foreign imports, after already announcing separate tariffs on goods from China, Canada, and Mexico, telling reporters he wanted reciprocal tariffs that match the duties countries levy on American goods, saying he wants to make sure we're treated evenly and that we don't want any more, any less. February 13, Trump signed a memorandum directing his administration to fix its non-reciprocal trade arrangements with other countries by determining the equivalent of a reciprocal tariff with respect to each foreign trading partner, taking into account what tariffs a country levies on American goods, but also related costs like value-added taxes and non-tariff trade barriers like regulations that make it harder for the U.S. to import their goods. March 26, the Trump administration announced 25% tariffs on imported cars to be imposed starting April 3, with an extension to imported auto parts starting May 3, as Trump suggested the levies would accelerate tremendous growth in the automobile industry as automakers build more U.S.-based plants. March 27, Trump indicated his auto tariffs would be permanent throughout his second term. March 31, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt told reporters there would be no exemptions at this time to Trump's impending tariffs on foreign goods. April 2, Trump rolled out his tariff policy at a Liberation Day event at the White House, releasing details of the plan that showed nearly all countries, even uninhabited ones, facing tariffs ranging from 10% and 50%, but the Trump administration appeared to calculate by just dividing a country's trade surplus with the U.S. by its export value, rather than the more sophisticated formula the administration claimed. Flip-flop number 1. Contrary to Leavitt's March 31 comments, the executive order imposing the tariffs exempted copper, pharmaceuticals, semiconductors, lumber articles, certain critical minerals, and energy products. Flip-flop number 2. Trump also backtracked on his previous commitment for the U.S. to charge reciprocal tariffs matching the ones other countries impose on American goods, saying in his speech the administration would instead charge them approximately half of what other countries have been charging us, so the tariffs will be not a full reciprocal, adding, "I could have done that, I guess, but it would have been tough for a lot of countries and we didn't want to do that." Flip-flop number 3. April 3, 4 p.m. EDT. Trump trade advisor Peter Navarro denied to CNBC that Trump intended to negotiate his tariffs with other countries, saying, "This is not a negotiation. This is not that. This is a national emergency," after Lutnick told CNN earlier that day Trump was not going to back off his tariffs. April 3, 5 p.m. EDT. Trump told reporters aboard Air Force One he was open to negotiating the tariffs, less than an hour after Navarro's comments, saying the U.S. has great power to negotiate because of the tariffs and he was open to making a deal if somebody said that we're going to give you something that's so phenomenal as long as they're giving us something that's good. Flip-flop number 4. April 4, 8:44 a.m. EDT. Trump insisted he wouldn't back off his tariff policy, writing on Truth Social, "To the many investors coming into the United States and investing massive amounts of money, my policies will never change." April 6, 9 to 11:30 a.m. EDT. Multiple Trump advisors suggested on Sunday shows Trump will not back off his tariffs for the foreseeable future, with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent telling Meet the Press, "The tariffs are not the kind of thing you can negotiate away in days or weeks," and Lutnick telling CBS News, "There is no postponing the tariffs taking effect." Trump aides also suggested the president was open to negotiations, however, with White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett telling ABC News more than 50 countries have reached out about starting talks, while Bessent said negotiations were gonna be a decision for President Trump, but he's created maximum leverage for himself. Flip-flop number 5. Lutnick seemingly doubled down on tariffs being imposed on smartphone imports, despite the tariffs causing Apple's stock price to decline, telling CBS, the army of millions and millions of human beings screwing in little screws to make iPhones, that kind of thing is going to come to America. April 7, 11:14 a.m. EDT. Trump threatened additional 50% tariffs on China in response to Beijing retaliating against his tariffs and said all talks with the country's government will be terminated, but said his administration would begin tariff negotiations immediately with other countries that have reached out, with Besant then confirming shortly after the president had directed him to begin negotiations with Japan. April 7, 3 p.m. EDT. Speaking to reporters in the Oval Office, Trump said he was not looking at pausing his tariffs, and when asked if his tariffs were permanent or if they could be negotiated, said, "Both can be true," adding, "There can be permanent tariffs, and there can also be negotiations." The president also insisted he would move forward with his tariff agenda despite them roiling the stock market, saying, "No other president would be willing to do what I'm doing, but I don't mind going through it because I see a beautiful picture at the end." April 8, Trump Trade Representative Jamieson Greer testified to the Senate Finance Committee the White House will have the president's plan go into effect on April 9 as scheduled, denying there would be any delay, but the government was coupling that with immediate negotiations. April 8, 1 p.m. EDT. Levitt told reporters during a press briefing that Trump has directed his trade team to have tailor-made trade deals with each and every country that calls up this administration to strike a deal, and emphasized Trump intended to bring manufacturing of tech products to the U.S., saying the president absolutely thinks iPhones and other products could be made in the U.S. and Trump believes we have the labor, we have the workforce, we have the resources to do it. April 9, 9:33 a.m. EDT. Trump told Americans to be cool after the stock market plunged in response to his tariffs taking effect at 12:01 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, writing on Truth Social, "Everything is going to work out well," and later urging Americans to buy stock and for companies to move their operations to the U.S. April 9, 1:18 p.m. EDT. In a stunning about-face, Trump announced on Truth Social he was pausing the worst of his tariffs on most countries for 90 days, though he would continue a baseline 10% tariff rate and raise his tariffs on most Chinese goods by 125%. Flip-flop number 6. Trump officials suggested immediately after his announcement the pause was part of the president's negotiating strategy, with Besant telling reporters, "This was his strategy all along," and Trump goaded China into a bad position, while Levitt told reporters, "Many of you in the media clearly missed the art of the deal." The president almost immediately contradicted those comments, telling reporters later Wednesday he had decided to pause the tariffs because people were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippee, also saying his plan to pause the tariffs probably came together early this morning, after the tariffs had taken effect. Flip-flop number 7. April 9, 3 p.m. EDT. Trump also told reporters in the Oval Office he still intends to impose additional tariffs on pharmaceuticals as well as semiconductor chips, saying the U.S. will build a chips factory that will be one of the largest plants in the world, and everything needed in order to approve it will be done in a matter of months. April 10, 11 a.m. EDT. Trump stood by his tariff policy as markets went down again after an initial rally in response to the 90-day pause, saying at a cabinet meeting, "We think we're in very good shape. We think we're doing very well. Again, there'll be a transition cost and transition problems, but in the end, it's going to be a beautiful thing." April 11th, 5 p.m. EDT. Trump told reporters on Air Force One he thinks his 10% baseline tariff rate is likely the floor, though there could be a couple of exceptions, also saying he's very comfortable now with at least 145% tariffs on Chinese imports while still leaving room for negotiations. April 11th, 10:36 p.m. EDT. Customs and Border Protection issued reciprocal tariff exclusion guidance saying smartphones, computers, and other electronic devices were now exempt from the tariffs, countering the previous statements from Trump and his officials suggesting they wanted to move such manufacturing to the U.S. Flip-flop number 8. April 12. The White House said in response to the exemption on tech products the administration still wants to move manufacturing of those products to the U.S., with Levitt saying in a statement, "President Trump has made it clear America cannot rely on China to manufacture critical technologies such as semiconductors, chips, smartphones, and laptops. These companies are hustling to onshore their manufacturing in the United States as soon as possible. April 13, 9 a.m. EDT. Lutnick told ABC's, "This week, the exemption on semiconductors and other goods is only temporary," claiming Trump is still crafting tariffs on tech goods.